right, we're live.
We are live. Introduce us. Came up on my phone.
All right, yeah, we got 4 people. Mark from Kentucky is here. What's going on, Mark? How you doing?
Yes, I was hoping Mark would be able to make it.
Yeah.
I'm lagging though. I'm like way behind. It just came up that I saw Mark was here.
Wait for a few more folks to join. What's going on, Mark? Hey, Bob Lewis.
Bob Lewis in the house. Look at that.
Yeah.
We got the All-Stars joining us tonight.
Yeah, I told you I was popular. Me and Bob, we go way back.
You go way back?
You said you talk to him on the phone. You said that you're going to hang out with you and your family. Yeah, we've already hung out a few times. So.
I'm hoping Mr. Lewis hangs out with us at Kennywood.
Nice. Oh, looks like we just lost one. So
all right,
we're doing something wrong.
We'll see who joins. Why don't we just get the party started here?
Okay, guys, this is the first time I'm going live myself. I technically was live with Jeff a couple of weeks ago, but he had hosted that. This is all going to be about fantasy baseball. Of course, I've been super busy with the Rookie Card Explosion box, but I've carved out enough time to do the second installment of the Major League Baseball Fantasy Baseball Preview for 2019. So we have a loose agenda. We will be giving away a few packs too. There's a few trivia questions that are embedded in today's agenda. But first, Jeff and I wanted to talk about some spring training news that some 5 or 6 storylines, and whether or not we think it's something that's statistically significant or meaningful, and that we buy the news or that we kind of sell the news. We don't think it's important. It's overblown. I know personally with spring training, a lot is made of performance in some cases. There'll be a guy that comes out of nowhere who hits like 5 or 6 home runs with a bunch of extra base hits, and everybody starts to kind of jack that person up on their draft boards. But at least from my perspective, generally, I try not to pay attention to any sort of statistics or results. I try to pay attention to kind of qualitative stuff, anecdotal stuff. Maybe somebody's coming into camp in shape. Maybe it's a pitcher that's working on a new pitch. Maybe you're looking at velocity for a guy that was injured the year before, talking about a pitcher. So health is something I definitely look at into. What about you, Jeff? Is there anything that you look into spring training wise?
Well, I think you touched on a lot of it. It's young players I'm looking at. I mean, veterans, you're not going to read too much in what they're doing because, you know, they have a track record to go by. So what I look for are really position battles, like the Mets with Dominic Smith and Peter Alonso, and things of that nature. But to me, that's the biggest significance of spring training is position battles and young players. I do look at velocity just when players, as you mentioned, are coming back from injury. I saw Steven Strasburg the other day got touched up a little bit against the Astros. He was throwing 93 miles an hour as fastball. I'm not going to read a lot into that because Strasburg has quite a track record. So it's really on a case-by-case basis, I think, a lot, especially when it comes to the pitchers.
Yeah, sure enough. I'm looking at the chat. A WBC collector says Ronald Acuna MVP. Hey, who knows? I mean, this could be the start of a very illustrious, storied career for Ronald Acuna. I sure hope so. You guys know I have a lot of his cards. Pete Miller says, hey, everyone. How are you doing, Pete? And Jake's Break says, let's go. My draft is tomorrow. Well, good luck, Jake. Hopefully you pick up something from today's live stream. So the first spring training event that I wanted to get into was Jesus Luzardo So he's in the Oakland farm system. He is a promising left-handed pitcher, and right now, as of I believe yesterday, he's had 9 2/3 innings pitched with a .93 ERA, striking out 15 batters, holding hitters to a 176 batting average. So Jeff, do you take that into account? Are you jacking him up your draft boards, or are you kind of just being dismissive of that news?
No, I'm gonna buy on Jesus Luzardo. The A's have a history of plucking these young pitchers coming out of nowhere. Not saying he's coming out of nowhere. I mean, he might be the highest rated left-hander in the minors, but no fanfare at all to speak of. Probably because of his size. He's a little undersized for a pitcher. I think one report has him at 6 feet, another 6'1". The only caution flag that I see with Jesus Luzardo is he's 2 years now removed from Tommy John surgery, and he threw 109 innings last year, which is a nice progression. So I think this year they would plan to limit him to 140 to 150 innings. I think that would cap his fantasy appeal. That being said, he looks like he might have the stuff to be a very good 150 innings for you, because the A's are a contender, and he could rack up 12, 13 wins in those 140 innings. So I definitely say buy on Luzardo.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there, Jeff. Oakland was probably one of the quietest teams of the last 5 years that won 95 games. So who knows? They might be competitive again this year. And Luzardo is a guy that I could see getting called up in mid to late April. Like you said, the pedigree's there. He's one of the top arms already in the minor league. So the performance here is definitely not a fluke. So I definitely see this as a time to jack him up on my draft boards.
All right. So we agree on that one. What else? Who else you got?
All right. So next guy, Julio Urias. Fastball velocity in the spring, topping out at 98 miles per hour. What do you think of Julio Urias?
I love Julio Urias. 2 years ago, he was the next big thing, the next can't miss prospect, and he got sidelined by injury. But the Dodgers are notorious for churning out great young pitching, and I think Urias is the next in line. Especially, I'm going to buy him at his average draft position, which I believe is between 3 and 350, depending on your league. So for that, you really can't go wrong. 98 miles an hour. I saw in his last game. His slider is nasty, and he has the smoothest, most repeatable delivery you'll see out there, which is for a 22-year-old. That's really rare. So this is another one I'm buying on. I'm definitely buying on Julio Urias.
I agree wholeheartedly. A little concerned. The Dodgers kind of are in this division where they don't have to do much to win it. So they have a lot of arms. They have the leisure, the ability to kind of rest up these arms. If Julio Urias turns his ankle the wrong way, even though he could probably start his next game, I mean, they'll put him on the IL and kind of milk that for all it's worth. So Urias, I think they definitely want him for the playoffs too. I think he's one of Major League Baseball's best kept secrets, but I also think he's one of the top arms on that staff. So him, yeah. Buehler, if real life playoff stats counted for fantasy, those are the two guys you'd want. But I'm just not so sure what their per game or per week averages will be like during the regular season. Having said that, Urias, 22, great stuff. Many years removed from Tommy John, of course, a few years removed from the major shoulder surgery. He looks completely healthy, throwing a couple miles an hour faster than he has in the past, than his average velo's topped out in the past. So lefties that can throw that hard, I mean, Kershaw and Bumgarner dominated with far less. So definitely buying that news. Number 3.
Before you move on, Phil, Mark from Kentucky says it. So, and he's the biggest prospector out there on YouTube. He's buying all the young players, but he's right. Young pitchers are really difficult to gauge.
Right.
So, and you're always taking a chance, but when you hit them, you can hit big. And you know what? He really doesn't have any obstacles for that 5th spot. I think Dave Roberts has already announced Ross Stripling is going to be his choice to step in for Kershaw, but I don't really see Ross Stripling as being much of an obstacle. So they will, as you mentioned, I think they will dial the throttle back on him a little bit, but all the talent in the world. I mean, up there with Clayton Kershaw stuff. I mean, when Kershaw was healthy. he's got great stuff. So
100% agree with you. Okay, so we're gonna do this this trivia question now. Skip ahead a little bit. So first trivia question. So I will be giving away to the winner a pack of 2018 Topps Chrome. If you can get this question, and you can only guess one player. So which 6-time All-Star is the only major leaguer to play over 2,000 games and steal under 10 bases? And I'll give you a hint. This player retired within the last 10 years. And again, the winner gets a pack of 2018 Bowman Retail. Which 6-time All-Star is the only major leaguer to play over 2,000 games and steal under 10 bases? So let's see what you guys in the chat think about that one.
Wow, that's a tough one.
Do you have any guesses, Jeff, yourself? Or
initially, I would think about a catcher, but you know, I don't want to give my guess out there too early. I know it's not Pudge, because I know Pudge ran a little bit. He could run quite a bit in his younger years.
Right. It's not David Ortiz, but that's a very good guess. That was probably my first guess when. And this question, by the way, you can't Google it because I tried. It would take a 10-minute Google search. It's not like one of those simple ones that you just kind of load the question into. So Google proof trivia.
You know what? I just had a name pop into mind, but I don't think the guy was a 6-time All-Star. So, but I'll throw that name out there.
Okay,
Jay, go ahead.
He's asking to repeat the question again.
Yes.
So JD, it is which 6-time All-Star is the only major leaguer to play over 2,000 games and steal under 10 bases? And the player is somewhat recent. We're talking he retired within the last 10 years. So he was a 6-time All-Star, played over 2,000 games, and he stealed under 10 bases. So I'll give you guys a few more minutes.
Let's give a couple more minutes. And there's one other buy or sell guy that I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, sure.
And that is, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this guy first, is Peter Alonso. He's had a torrid spring, and I believe he was the Mets number 47 pick overall in the draft. So he's got some pedigree. What do you think of Peter Alonso?
Well, he's got the pedigree. I like him. I don't know if he's as can't miss as guys like Vlad and Eloy, who last year tore up multiple levels while keeping a very modest strikeout rate. So power and average with that strikeout rate.
Yeah, but you get him a lot cheaper than Vlad or Eloy. Right.
Exactly. But Alonso still posted above double-digit walk rates. Strikeouts were higher, but not like a more alarming like Joey Gallo percentage. I think they're around like 25%. So I could see him definitely contributing in a major way, especially if you're in leagues that count on base percentage. But still, it's not really a hitter's park per se.
Yeah.
But with a full year of Michael Conforto with a perfect shoulder, I mean, he's a guy that I'm definitely drafting in a lot of my leagues if I can. I think that their offense has a chance to be better, and of course they have Robinson Cano.
Victor Negron in the chat is mentioned, and welcome in, Victor. He's mentioning the Mets prospects are overhyped, which we all know is true. I think he's probably going back even to the Gen X days of Pulsifer, Isringhausen, and who's the other one I'm missing there? But yeah, they're always overhyped. You can go back to David West before he was traded for Kevin Tapney, the Twins. They were always hype their pitchers. But on
right.
Peter,
and then they traded Scott Kazmir for Victor Zambrano. Remember that one?
Yes, that was that one they got hurt on. Peter Alonso, I'm actually going to sell on that only because as hot of a spring as Peter Alonso is having, there's one guy who's having an even hotter spring, and that's his competition mate over here at first base, Dominic Smith. He's tearing the cover off the ball in spring training, which is, I mean, who'd have thunk it? I think I wrote it down here. Dominic Smith last year, I believe he hit in 143 at bats. He had a robust 224 with 4 walks against 47 strikeouts. But somehow Dominic Smith came out swinging this spring, and I think he's the only. I think he has 16 hits in spring training. He's the only one having a better spring than Alonso.
That's usually the way it works. And I guess, the Yankees, there's a parallel there on the other side of New York where you have Greg Bird and Luke Voigt vying for the job. Greg Bird, another perennial guy who shows up for the spring, doesn't do much after that. So I'll bet on the guy with the pedigree, or I'll bet on the guy that hasn't failed at the major league level yet. Dominic has, but that's a very good point. Jeff McNeil's another guy. Maybe he's not first base, but he's tearing it up, I believe, and he has some success at the major league level. More of an average guy, but definitely very useful.
And luckily for Greg Bird, I believe he, with the injury to Hicks, who's probably going to miss the beginning of the season, there for a while it was looking like the Yankees were only going to carry one first baseman, but it looks like they're going to carry both now. So it's not quite the battle anymore. So we'll see how that shakes out. But my money would be on Luke Voigt because he just absolutely tore it up last year. But they do need a left-handed bat in their lineup, so that's where Greg Bird is the asset there.
Yeah, Luke Voigt performing the way he's performing now, I mean, he's not going to be on the wrong side of a platoon. I mean, he hasn't struggled yet at the major league level. I mean, they can't – the way he's performing in the spring, Luke Voigt's going to be their guy.
Do we have any correct guesses on the trivia question? How you doing, Joester, Wicked Paul? Thanks for joining, guys.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? Sorry we've neglected you for a while. How you doing, Jay McGillicuddy? And we got Victor Negron, of course, W. Voggs, Paul Deitch, Jester's Cars and Coins. So, yeah, I don't see a correct answer. Do you have a not Joe Mauer? Do you have a? It's not Lastings and Millage.
Lastings Millage.
Oh, that was about the prospects. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Not Prince Fielder, but all good guesses. Adrian Gonzalez is a very good guess. He was very, very slow. Do you have a guess? Jeff?
I do, but I don't think this guy was slower than Molasses, and in fact, I think he was notoriously slow. But I don't think he made six All-Star game appearances. But the 15 years and 2,000 games does fit. So I'm going to go with Benji Molina.
Got it. Good guess, but no.
No. Okay.
The correct answer, you're going to be kicking yourself. The correct answer is Paul Konerko.
Paulie, wow.
Yes, okay. Less than 10 career steals.
Wow. He was not very fleet of foot, but that's a great question. An ungoogleable question, as you said.
Exactly.
Hey, Brandon Boss, thanks for stopping in, man.
All right, so now we'll focus on the next segment. So this is all about players that are currently ranked outside of the top consensus 200 that could finish in the top 75 in fantasy baseball rankings for 2019. So you want to throw out your first name first, Jeff?
I do, but I would definitely like to see what some of the chat has to say too, because this is always one of the most popular things to prognosticate in fantasy. Who's your deep sleeper? So I'm interested to see what a few of these guys who they think.
Yeah, what do you think, guys?
They're gonna come out of nowhere. Well, not come out of nowhere, but in the fantasy sense, give you great value at a late pick. For me, unquestionably, this guy's going an average of 221, and that is Alex Reyes of the Cardinals. The Cardinals and he's coming off an injury, and the stuff has been undeniably awesome. He throws 100 miles an hour with wicked breaking stuff. And the Cardinals, going back to Chris Carpenter, Adam Wainwright, they always do a great job of starting guys out in the bullpen and just turning them into dominant aces. And I think Alex Ray, I thought this was going to happen last year with him before he got beset with injury. So I think this is the year he starts out in the bullpen, cracks the rotation by the All-Star break, wins 8 or 9 games in the second half, and really is going to help out any fantasy team this year. Who are you thinking, Phil?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the names in the chat room. Willie Adames, that's a sneaky one. Still very young, unproven. I think he'll be a great player. I don't know if this is the year, but that's a great pick from Markham, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Harrison Bader's an interesting one, but he doesn't really hit that well against right-handed pitchers, which is the wrong split that you want. Tyler Skaggs, before he had that abdomen injury last year, He was very good. He had an ERA, I think, below 3, or maybe in the low threes or below 3, with a lot of strikeouts. He hasn't really shown the ability to stay healthy throughout the course of a year, but he could be very good. Chris Carpenter, Marcelo Zuna was very good the last couple of months of the season. If he does what he did in 2017, or even 90% of that, that's going to be an amazing value wherever he gets taken. Of course, he's going in the top 100 now. Daniel Murphy, that's a great one.
Love him, but he's not outside. He's a
Right.
top, I'd say, 72 pick, Daniel Murphy.
Right.
But yeah, I think he will outperform his ADP for sure.
Yeah. Second base too. I mean, Daniel Murphy is probably going after guys that are less proven, that kind of had years that were a little difficult to explain. Ozzie Albies, Gleyber Torres. Daniel Murphy, I would say, is a little more safe, and he's got a great lineup and an awesome ballpark.
He's going to hit for one heck of a batting average too, man. Right. That is a big field. I don't see any way he doesn't hit 50 doubles in that ballpark. Oh, and don't glance over Chris Carpenter. Mark wanted you to know, or Jay, I'm sorry, wanted you to know that he's from New Hampshire. So
I knew that. And Will Myers is I don't know how many bases he'll steal this year, but he should be a little bit more motivated this year. They brought in Machado. Probably bring in Tatis a little bit earlier now that Machado's here.
We got one heck of a team.
Yeah.
AJ Pollock, Mark, who's that? Mark from Kentucky. AJ Pollock. That's real interesting to me. I mean, he's been hitting in the great hitters park the last few years in Arizona. So even though I think it's a nice addition for the Dodgers in center field, fantasy wise, I think his numbers might be on a downward trend, just because I'm not loving that Dodgers lineup. I'm not a big Cody Bellinger fan. I don't know. I'm not loving AJ. I don't think he's going to run as much in LA. So I think even though I think it was a nice signing in real life for the Dodgers, I think in the fantasy sense, he might be drafted a little too highly. So I'm going to disagree with Mark from Kentucky on that one.
Yeah, Pollock has always been a fantasy buzzkill. It's like he puts up
he always gets injured,
and then he can help you in all categories, theoretically. But then he just can't keep up the pace, or he gets injured, or something happens, whether it's a fluke injury or not. So back to who I think is a sleeper pick that's outside of the 200 that I think could be maybe a top 75 value. First guy is, speaking of the San Diego Padres, Franmil Reyes. Based on roster resource, he doesn't currently have a starting job, but things always change throughout the course of a season, and he, down the stretch, was absolutely tearing it up for power, good average. And if you look at what he did in AAA, I think he had like a 447 weighted OBA. That is just ridiculous. He struggled for a little bit when he came up for the Padres, but he was sent back down. He made some adjustments, and he kept his strikeouts at check while he increased his average and his home run hitting abilities. Also pretty good walk rates there. So if he can manage to sneak in at some position, right now they have, I think, their best defensive outfield out there on opening day based on the source I saw. But I think he's a guy that could definitely contribute in power and in other categories on an improved San Diego Padres offense. So what's another guy you like, Jeff?
Yeah, Reyes, I mean, he's got immense power, but I think one of the tubers had mentioned Hunter Renfroe. So I think that might be I think one of them might have a great year at the other's expense. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The other two, just for time's sake, I'm going to lump them both together. I like Ketel Marte in Arizona. In the fantasy sense, he's going to be eligible at second base and shortstop in most leagues. Obviously, you're going to have to check your league. But I think he played most of his games there last year. But he's going to be playing center field, and I think he has the green light to run like crazy this year. So where stolen bases are really, really have dropped over the years in Major League Baseball, I think Ketel Marte can be a fantastic asset to your team, especially going at pick number 254 on average. And then the other one, I'm going to go with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Why am I going with him? Yes, he is a jack of all trades, but because of that, he's going to get about 400 at-bats in Texas, which is a fantastic hitter's park, a good lineup to hitting, and get this, in fantasy baseball, he's eligible at catcher. So that's a sneaky pick, easy for me to say, And they're the types of picks that can help you win your league. To get someone like that, slot them into the catcher position. So they are my other two deep sleepers, Phil. Who are you thinking?
Yeah, so on my list, I have Josh James. I think now is a great time to buy him, especially in deeper leagues, as he's slipping down. He's not going to be ready for opening day. He's a little banged up, but this doesn't mean that he won't contribute later on in the season. And yeah, there is a risk there because they are pretty deep rotation wise. They have Brad Peacock, they have Colin McHugh there, both very good arms. McHugh showed some great strides last year on improving, but McHugh's already injured, I believe, with an arm issue. So Josh James, I mean, if you look at what he did in the minors last year, he started, I believe, 17 games with like a 13 K per nine and walks per nine of about like 3.5, maybe high threes. And what he did down the stretch and in the playoffs. I mean, this is a guy with just great stuff, multiple pitches. I mean, a lot of people forget, but Chris Sale started as a relief pitcher, and he was probably ranked around 60, 70 the first year where he broke up. So Josh James is a guy I like. Another guy that's interesting, but Jeff was telling me about this earlier. Garrett Hampson, he actually got injured recently, and he might not be on track to start opening day. But Hampson,
Speed guy.
Yeah, good average too. So we're talking like in the minors, 300 to 320 average. Average probably about 60 steals per year, like an 85% efficiency rate. So put that guy in Colorado. A lot of people thought last year when DJ LeMahieu was leaving that it would open the doors for Brendan Rodgers, but nobody's talking about Brendan Rodgers right now. So
right.
Enter the door for Hampson. Of course, now you have a crowded infield with Ryan McMahon, as well as who's tearing it up in the spring, as well as Daniel Murphy. And Daniel Murphy's not going to sit on that team if he's healthy. So that one's a little bit interesting. A few things might have to happen for all three of those guys, for Reyes, James, and Hampson for me.
Yeah, for sure. If you check out the chat, first and foremost, Bowman 1951, breaking your stones a little bit there. Mark from Kentucky mentioned Zach Wheeler. I love Zach Wheeler. Yeah, and he's playing in a contract year, so I think he's really going to continue on what he did in the second half. And I know, Mark, you hope so. You're a big Mets fan. And Jay Schmo is mentioning the big topic of today is that Harper took a fastball off the ankle, and he says he's going for X-rays. But I did read a report just before we got on here that the X-rays did come back negative. So Philly fans can breathe a sigh of relief that Harper's okay.
That's too bad. He kind of.
That's too bad.
So, just kidding. Harper is an awesome player. So it's hard to knock him, even though he's a bit arrogant. I mean, so is Tom Brady. So
you see this, Wicked? This is Philadelphia Flyers right here. We're in Flyers country.
All right, so I'm giving away another pack of 2018 Topps Chrome. This one somebody's actually going to win, unlike the last one, which nobody was able to get the first trivia question. The answer to that was Paul Konerko. So this is about Vlad Guerrero Jr., dealing with an oblique injury right now. I think his timetable was about 3 weeks last time I checked. And I want people in the chat to guess how many home runs Vladimir Guerrero will end up with this year in the major leagues. They have to be home runs for the Toronto Blue Jays major league team. And whoever comes closest to the correct total, and going over isn't going to penalize you. Whoever comes closest is going to win. But the caveat is you have to beat Jeff and I. And if you, JeffAirtime, and if you come the same amount as one of us, so say if he hits 29 home runs and Jeff guesses 27 and the next closest person guesses 31, then that doesn't count. So you have to be closer than us to the total. So what do we have? So we have 74. And you can only guess one, so you're disqualified, Bowman. Unless he actually hits like 60, then I guess you win. Damn. Because, yeah, it doesn't penalize you to go over. So let's see. We have 32, good guess, 31, 24. And, Jeff, you can guess afterwards, and we'll guess at the end.
Now, you have to take into consideration, it looks like, and I obviously they'd never admit this. I think the Blue Jays might be a little bit happy that he kind of tweaked himself and won't be ready for opening day, because that saves them the grief of all the ridicule and that they have to send. They're going to send him down to keep him away from playing the first month of the season. To protect them against one more year of Major League Baseball service, which is the other big story of today was Eloy Jimenez was sent down for the White Sox, and who's the Astros pitcher went on record of criticizing the White Sox organization. I think it was Colin McHugh, openly criticizing the White Sox for keeping them down, as they're going to do to protect his service time, probably till April 1st, even though he hit 337 across AAA and AA last year, and he's obviously ready, much like the Cubs did with Chris Bryant. So it's a rule that I think will be changed next time the CBA is up in 2 years. But for now, when you're temper your expectations with Vlad Guerrero, knowing he's going to miss all of April, playing in the minor leagues. So.
Right. It's crazy. And hey, Lone Star, what's going on, man? How you doing? Hey, Lone Star, guess how many home runs Vlad Guerrero will hit this year? And that stands for everybody else that's joined too, since we introduced the survey questions.
Since I went on that little rant, do we have everyone's guesses? How many home runs is Vladdy Jr. going to hit this year?
Yeah, Eloy, I actually read that they're thinking about there's rumors about giving him a contract extension already, like 8 years of control for $100 million. And I was reading about that and what that would mean. If he has like a Carlos Lee type career, then it would be a massive fail and overpay. But if it's like a Frank Thomas type career, then that's pretty damn good. That's a bargain. So
yeah, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
It's like giving fans like you're stabbing them in the back, but then you're like smiling, like, I don't know, because you failed in not getting Machado. So here you're giving them like a little appetizer by like saying like, oh, well, we're serious about like being competitive because we want to retain Eloy and we're going to throw a bunch of money his way. So it almost seems like very reactionary in that manner. But
you think the Cubs would like to have Eloy back in the fold?
Oh, Jesus. Seriously.
I was just going to mention, sometimes it works out assigning a youngster out of the minor leagues to long term, but sometimes it doesn't. The Phillies gave Scott Kingery a whole bunch of money last year, and he kind of fell on his face last year. So I mean, you're really taking your chances when you're an organization, even though Eloy does look like a pretty safe bet. But obviously, there's always a chance.
There's always a chance. Victor Negron says Carlos Lee had a few good years. No, he definitely did. But I think if you base it on WAR, that was just the article. It was trying to say that WAR of one is worth this amount. So if you extrapolate that based on Carlos Lee's WAR and the amount he got at the time, adjusted for inflation, it wouldn't have been the best usage of money if he had received $100 million for his first 8 years. Okay, so I guess now we can move on to the next segment. So here we're going to talk about who's overvalued this year based on current ADPs. So could be a guy that's being drafted in the 15th spot, the 25th spot, 200, 110. It's all relative. So who do we think's being, overvalued based on current draft positions, based on consensus ADPs? So Jeff, you want to throw out a name?
I certainly will, and I know I'm going to draw some hate for this because a lot of people love this guy. But I have to go with Trevor Story. He's typically being drafted at the bottom half in the second round, generally between picks number 20 and 24, because he is coming off a fantastic season in Colorado of 37 home runs and 27 stolen bases. And he even hit 291, which is way above anything he had done in the past. Just the year prior, you don't even have to go far. He hit 239, and I think he struck out 191 times, if I remember correctly. And obviously his power numbers and stolen bases were nothing like that. It was like 24 and 7. So I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle is what he's going to give you this year. He might hit high 20s home runs. I don't think he's going to run that much, maybe teen stolen bases. And he's not going to hit 291. That one I know for sure because he still has a lot of swing and miss in him. So not to say he's not going to have a very good season, but I wouldn't spend a 20 pick number 22 on Trevor Story when there's so many more safer bets out there than him. So that would definitely be my first guy who I would not overpay for.
Yeah, so I'd be curious to hear what you guys. Oh, so Jesus Aguilar, Madison Bumgarner. So keep on throwing out names, guys, of guys that you think could be busts given their current ADPs. Jesus Aguilar came out of nowhere and he really struggled down the stretch. So JD, I think that's a good one. Madison Bumgarner, for a guy who's 29, he sure has a lot of mileage and doesn't throw that hard anymore. And he really, his underlying stats are kind of have been trending in the wrong direction for some time.
They are, but you know about the interesting thing about Madison Bumgarner, I think it was Mike O. I had a couple messages going back and forth with him the other day. I would love to see him end up in a Phillies uniform. So for that to happen, I believe the Giants would have to get off to a slow start and start that rebuild. And I think Madison Bumgarner would be the first one to go on a block. So I would not be surprised at all to see Madison Bumgarner in a different uniform come the All-Star break. So Madison Bumgarner, I think, will be a very interesting player in fantasy this year.
Got it. Yeah. So somebody I think that's he's had a great season. This is no knock on him. I think he's a terrific player, but he's getting picked in the top first round consistently, and that's Christian Yelich. Christian Yelich, sure, he's at that, what is he, like 27, 28, and he's most hitters usually break out around that age, especially power wise. But I just don't see his home run to fly ball ratio staying whatever it was last year, 25%. I don't see that being the norm, even though he did move to a more friendly hitting environment versus Miami. So I think, this year he could have his second best season, and it could be 80% as good as last year. But I think that means that he's probably a little overvalued at pick number 10 or 11 or so. Javi Baez is another guy that he had a terrific year. Just another one, though, like don't pay or don't overpay for his career year. And Javi Baez is going around pick 25, I think, maybe the high 20s. He's a guy that strikes out a lot. He's a guy that doesn't walk a lot. And if you look at historically players that had 25% K rates, walking 5% of the time, they're usually not great fantasy assets. Now, Javi Baez does have a good hit tool. He might be able to maintain a 270 average, but you're going to need those steals. You're going to need a really high home run to fly ball ratio. Just a lot of things need to hit right, need to crack right in order for you to get that 25th to 30th ADP justified. So
agreed. We got to get to this chat because we got some good names getting thrown out there in this chat. First of all, I'm sorry, Lone Star. I went after the Texas boy, but I really want to touch on Troy Tulowitzki with the Yankees. Mark brings him up. I thought he was going to go to somewhere like the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have a couple young infielders, just to like, I don't know, mentor them. I don't know if that's the right word, but they have a couple middle infielders, and they don't even have to pay much money. So with the thrifty Pirates, I really thought Tulo was going to sign there because the Blue Jays are picking up 98% of his salary. So for the Yankees, it was really a great deal to get him. Fantasy wise, I don't see him getting more than 300, 400 at bats because the Yankees have. Well, now they have 6 infielders, and when Didi comes back, that'll give them yet another infield. You're going to use DJ LeMahieu all around. They got 2 first basemen. So even though I do think Tulowitzki will be good in the time that he plays, I don't see him getting enough at bats to have fantasy relevancy. I could be wrong if they get beset with injury, which is always a possibility. But as it stands right now, I don't see Tulowitzki getting more than 3 or 4 games a week. And Adalberto Mondesi was just a fantasy monster down the stretch last year with his stolen bases and power also. He's really an interesting player. I've seen him go as high as in the 30s in fantasy drafts, and I've seen him go down around 100. So I don't think a lot of the fantasy world really knows what quite to make of him yet.
Yeah. And somebody actually brought up Anthony Rizzo, and he's a guy you can't really count on for average anymore. So, you might be able to get 28 to 32 home runs, but maybe 95 to 105 RBIs. So you have to ask yourself, how valuable is that, even at a time when first base is a little shallower than usual. But we got a Pepino Man showed up. What's going on, Pepino Man? That guy has been sending me pictures of his genitalia all week.
Pepino.
Other than that, he's a really cool dude. I like him a lot. And
how can you not like Pepino?
How do 1,400 people subscribe to that guy? Are these
There's
people
1,400 demented people out there? I'll tell you that.
Is it Joe iPhone and all of his fake accounts? Like, crazy. Got Bowman.
Shout out Joe iPhone. We love you, man.
Yeah, seriously, I do love you, Joe iPhone. You're the man. Keep up the ASMR. That's creative as fuck. Okay, so Joe Bowman 1951 is talking nonsense. He's trying to make us laugh. Jose Uribe, of course, the guy that has that $145,000 trillion in a PSA 790 Fleer card. Caesar. Oh yeah, Bowman 51 saw the picks. Oh, Pepino's in a draft. Seager #1. He could be a big bounce back guy, but he's not going to steal a lot of bases. He probably won't hit 35 home runs. So I still think he's going to have a great career, and I think eventually his power might blossom. But a guy like Carlos Correa just has a higher ceiling just based on their pedigrees.
Yeah, I love Correa this year, especially where he's going.
Yeah, Josh Bell's interesting. I don't know if he elevates the ball well enough to be like a power threat, but if you're in a points league or walks count, Josh Bell could be a sneaky pick, or a decent like first base backup reserve pick.
All right, W Boggs, I'll make sure he sees your videos for sure. Card Dreamer, that's all right. I think 2 weeks ago, Pepino thought we were talking about Fortnite, so just roll with it, man. Thanks for stopping in.
Yeah, Correa. Yeah, sorry, W Boggs. So I think I had like 86 subscribers back in like early January. Then this whole rookie card explosion thing's really soared my numbers there. So
Wilmington is on the map with the RCEB for sure.
I am subscribed to. I checked like at 155 channels, which is a lot, given that I just started doing this in like November. It's hard for me to catch up to everybody's videos, but W Vox, I'll definitely check you out. Definitely see you.
We're all growing together. We're all growing together.
Yeah, Marquez. So she blinded me with refractors. Just asked us if we believe in Marquez for the Rockies this season. I see a wide range of potential outcomes. Last year, I think he made some mechanical changes later in the season, and he the last like 15 starts, he had like, it was like 110 innings with like 140 Ks and a ridiculous ERA, ridiculous WHIP, and he was actually consistently good against good offenses at home. So Marquez is a guy that, in an age where you can't really count on people for innings anymore, last year he had 230 strikeouts. So even if he gives you a high 3 ERA, which I think he might because half his games are at Coors, I think that Marquez, if you take him outside the top 20 for pitchers, I do think there's some upside there. It's just, is he going to turn into John Gray? I don't necessarily think everybody's John Gray. John Gray has great peripherals. He's dominating into the spring, and he's doing some stuff like now he's trying to eat during games.
Yes, let me tell you something about John Gray. He, I think it was just last week where he came out with, he lost 20 pounds last year for an undisclosed health issue, which has now been taken care of. So that he said that took a hit on his velocity. So I think John Gray might rebound this year. But let me ask you a question. If you have to have a fantasy starting pitcher on your staff from Colorado, will it be Herman Marquez, John Gray, or Kyle Freeland? Which of those three do you take on your staff? Is it Marquez, or do you go one of the other two?
Yeah, I know who my answer would be. It would be Marquez. Freeland didn't have the best peripherals last year. I think xFIP and FIP weren't too impressive. John Gray has disappointed me many, many times. Okay, Victor Negron thinks Freeland, though. He might have the.
I bet you if you ask 3 people, you could get 3 different answers. I really think they're that tightly bunched. I mean,
and even with Gray and Marquez, you can't tell me who has the better stuff. I think it's really close. Marquez throws 98. He's got a filthy slider.
As does Gray.
So yeah, Marquez did have a beast second half.
Yeah, he sure did.
He
scares me. Oh, he scares me. That Colorado pitchers, because I mean, you can throw a great pitch. There's so much space in the outfield. A little dinks and dunks fall in, and then you just make one mistake, and all of a sudden you give up 3 runs. That's why I don't care if it's Sandy Koufax or Bob Gibson out there. I'm going to be reluctant to use a starter in Coors Field. That's all. And nothing against Herman Marquez or any Rockies pitcher. I'm always a little scared using a pitcher in Colorado.
Yeah, I think so. Marquez is still very young. I think he regained some faith or found some faith in some of his secondary pitches, and that allowed him to throw his fastball a little less. I think that's maybe one of the changes he made, whether it was a slider or sinker mix. Okay, so we're gonna do one last trivia question. Oh yeah, Jeff, why don't we guess how many home runs Vlad's gonna hit this year? I'll put it in the chat for me. I'm gonna say 27 home runs for Vlad. And anyone else, guess how many home runs Vlad will hit if you haven't already. Whoever comes closest, if you can beat Jeff and I, you get a pack of 2018 Topps Chrome, and you don't get penalized for going over. So I'm going to guess 27 home runs for Vlad. And the last trivia question is going to be, how many stolen bases do you think Trey Turner is going to wind up with this year? His manager really wants him to run a lot. There's really a wide range here because last year he didn't run nearly as much as people had hoped him to, as people had priced him into. And regarding it, he was getting picked, I think, the top 4 or 5 in drafts. But what do people think Trey Turner will get for stolen bases this year? All right, Lone Star got you down for 22. And I'm assuming anything above 45 is a stolen base total. I guess this is going to be, yeah. Is Pepino Man?
Bowman 1951 thinks he's going to run like Vince Coleman this year.
So any guesses between 35 and 45? Just make sure you specify whether it's for Trey Turner or Vlad, or else I'll get confused. Anything above 45, I'll assume it's Trey Turner steals. And anything below 35, I'll assume it's Vlad home runs. But or just specify that, that would be helpful. But
hey, yeah. Matt M, thanks for stopping in, man. There's a good baseball man right there, Matt M.
All right, and while people do that, we'll do one player debate. So which one should we do? Do you want to do hitter or pitcher in this one, Jeff?
Let's go with a pitcher. We got to go with a pitcher.
All right, so Jeff and I are going to debate 2 players and which guy belongs on your fantasy team over the other one. Generally, they're getting drafted, I think, within 10 to 15 picks of one another, depending on the platform. And those pitchers are Jack Flaherty and my boy, Mike Clevenger. So, Jeff, tell us what you like about Jack Flaherty.
First, why don't I start by telling you what don't I like about Jack Flaherty? Nothing. There's nothing not to like about Jack Flaherty. I've even made videos about him in the past. He's got huge, big side. He's a big kid with a blazing fastball. Great control. Look at his whip, his walk numbers, low, even throughout the minors. So he not only throws 98 miles an hour, he spots it where he wants to. A big overhand curveball, it just falls off the table. And I really think he's going to, like I mentioned with the Dodgers before, the Cardinals have a pitching-rich lineage that I think he's going to be the next big thing. I'm actually planning on a Cy Young award for him this year. He's going to be right up there with DeGrom and Scherzer. I really love him. The Cardinals are a much improved team with Goldschmidt at first, so I think the wins are going to be there. And their bullpen scares me a little bit, but other than that, I guess that could be the one knock. Maybe he'll have some wins that are blown save, but I don't. And he's a National League pitcher in fantasy. In fantasy, even if you get 2 comparable pitchers, I'm always going to lean towards the National League pitcher. So, I mean, to me, it's a given, but I'm sure you're going to make a pretty good case for Clevenger as well, who really busted on the seam last year. Taking nothing away from him, he's a solid pitcher as well. But he does pitch in the American League.
Yeah, Matt M's talking about Joey Gallo and his 50 home runs. Hey, if somebody could guarantee me that Joey Gallo would have a 227 or greater batting average, I would take him in all my drafts. Unfortunately, he's never hit above 215.
Yeah, he's going to bring down your batting average. I'm sorry, right, Lone Star, but he's just a fantasy killer in the batting average.
I could have actually used him in a recent draft because I had Buster Posey, Votto, and Altuve and Soto. I had all these average guys.
Them, right? Yeah.
In that case, I could have used him to supplement my team. But going back to Flaherty versus Clevenger, Flaherty, the knock on him, I think, is his walk rate. wasn't terrible, but I think it was around 3.5 per 9. And so you can see kind of maybe like a parallel to like Lance McCullers. Like he could maybe take a step back. All of a sudden, he's less efficient, and that might affect his innings pitched, his counting stats, his wins. His slider is nasty, but I think he's one more pitch away from being truly elite. He could do that this year, but we're kind of banking on a few things for him to kind of blossom, keeping those walks in check and developing another pitch maybe. Even though he was very good last year, also his K rate in the minors was probably closer to 1 per inning versus I think he had like a 10 plus K per 9 in the majors last year. Maybe that's because of the National League factor. I don't know. With Clevenger, what I like is he last year he had a legitimate breakout, and he actually struggled with fastball command over the first couple months. But I think Trevor Bauer ran some tape and gave him some ideas for adjustments to make, which turned him into a strike throwing machine. So he nibbled a bit. Even in 2017, he was a bit of a nibbler, but he started to pump the strike zone with more confidence as of last year. Getting first pitch strikes, I think around like 70% of the time, increasing or dropping his walks substantially. He has 4, not just 1, but 4 plus pitches already. I think there's room for him to climb further if he's to maybe fix his or improve his changeup consistency. I think he can pitch another 200 plus innings, quality innings with a lot of Ks, decent win potential. Not the best situation, again, being in the American League, like Jeff pointed out, not with the best offense either, but I think he could have a year where he's actually potentially better than Kluber. That's a bold statement. Kluber is very consistent, very good.
But actually, I think he has one supporting fact about him that you didn't mention. I'm kind of surprised you didn't mention. With Kluber and Carrasco on the team, he's going to be pitching out of the number 3 or 4 hole in the rotation. At least early in the season, he's going to be going against pitchers that are less than him. So I think that'll benefit him as well. But again, if you're comparing a comparable National League pitcher to American League pitcher, I'm always going to side on the National League side pitcher. Now we have to get to somebody's comments because Lone Star. I think Phil. I think we both lost a subscriber in Lone Star. We're really pissing him off today. And well, actually, you can't unsubscribe to me, Lone Star. I'm a card crew member. I think it's in the rule book. But Phil, you might be in danger.
Yeah, it might be. Hey, if you unsubscribe to me though, you can't win the giveaway for a free flight to the National. I don't think he told me he can't make it this year, but there's a 2013 Topps update box that you could get.
Ooh,
and,
I'd love to see you ripping that on your channel, Lone Star, the king of the rip.
Yeah, I can make a couple out of that. Those are some big packs. That's 500 cards in there, I think. Yeah. Matt M talking about Guzman.
Oh, Guzman for the Rangers? Yeah, now there. I think Lone Star would be on my side. I really like Guzman this year. Not only does he have a great glove, but Guzman can hit a little bit too. So I think the Rangers got themselves a first baseman there for years to come.
Yeah. Hey, Lone Star, I heard that Martin Perez was throwing like 96, 97 in the spring. I know hasn't really been great. He was at one point a great prospect, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that, Lone Star. Do you think that there's something there with his velo increase?
Don't suck up to him now and tell him Martin Perez is going to break out this year.
Hey, I
think he's been burned enough by Perez already.
He might be worthy of drafting in maybe like a 16-team Texas Rangers only league. I mean, he could have good value there, yeah. Pepino Man, hey. Oh wow, Pepino Man said something genuine for once in his life. He wasn't completely joking about something. Had to throw a joke in there, Lone Star, so he apologized to him. All right, good stuff. Thoughts on Buehler second year? Oh, you want to take this one, Jeff? That's a good one by Matt M.
I don't want to knock Buehler because you just look at the playoffs. I mean, and he showed you what he can do and what I think he will do this year. The only reluctancy I'd have in terms of fantasy, which he's going in the high 30s. There's just pitchers that go in that area that you can draft that are going to give you 200 innings and 200 strikeouts. I think the Dodgers are going to be very conservative with Buehler this year in a looking ahead to the playoffs. I have no knock on the guy. I like him. I like his potential. But I just think the Dodgers might treat him with kid gloves this year and cap his innings a little bit, or just dial the needle back a little bit on him. And I know, Phil, you have some great Walker Buehler cards, so I know you're a big fan of his.
Yeah, I'm bullish overall on Buehler's career, but I am not bullish on him as a top 30 or 40 pick, like Jeff just said. Not this year. He's a great pitcher. He's got 4 awesome pitches.
Slight frame.
Yeah, I mean, I think his frame's good enough. I mean, I think he's listed at like 6'3", 180, 190. Okay, that could be exaggerated, but he could put on some weight. He's still very young. I love his grit. I love his determination, but his stuff is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
just not this year. Not with a team that needs him for the playoffs. He's going to be their most valuable player in the playoffs. I think we were talking about this earlier. And Urias will probably be there too, but they're really going to baby him this year. And it's just what they do with most of their pitchers outside of Kershaw. Look at what they've done with all other pitchers over the last, 2 or 3 years, and it's worked really well for them. Their division's weak enough where they can afford to do that stuff, and it keeps their pitchers healthier for when they need them. So against the Red Sox this year in the World Series again. But Jose Ramirez, she blinded me with refractors. Just asked, what do you guys think about Jose Ramirez sliding a little in drafts? I would say I love his hit tool. I love his ability to hit for average. He's still young. He's legit. He's going to give you some steals. If he slides past 3, I think that's a mistake. If he slides past the top 5, that is a huge mistake, and I think you should scoop him up. What do you think about that, Jeff?
I do. I love his bat on ball skill and power. There's really nothing not to like there. Position eligibility, I think he loses. Yeah. What do you think? He's just going to be at.
I think he played about 17 games last year at second, so that might qualify him for Yahoo leagues. But
wasn't that much?
I might be discussing. But he did. He's still third base, I think. But he did. I think he all of those games at second base were in September. So I don't know what that means, and I forget how the infield has changed a little bit, has been shaken up. But I don't know if he's going to be playing second this year, or if you can bank on him getting 20 games there. But that's a huge bonus if he's eligible at second, because second base is the second weakest position after catcher.
Matt M saying he thinks he's going to go 40 for 40. That's definitely a bold statement. 40 stolen bases is a lot.
Yeah, he doesn't look that fast. He's kind of got like that pudgy face.
He does, but he's got some wheels on him. You got to give him that.
Yeah, but then he went 30-30, so just be happy to get that again with a really nice average, and he's helping you in every category. Can't hate that. Mookie's going to go 50-50. Yeah. Okay.
Likes the young pitcher in Houston, Forrest Whitley. Oh, wait, no, I think I misread that. I think he's comparing Jose Ramirez to Forrest Whitaker.
Man, it'll probably be, I guarantee you, at some point tonight, it might be 7:15 Eastern time. It could be 8:30. It could be 9:47. At some point, I'll get another round of dick pics from Man. I don't know when that's going to be, but there'll probably be a couple. There'll be like maybe a couple like Willie Mays cards like covering his ball sack, but his genitalia will be exposed. You can count on that.
Death taxes and dick pics. You can count on them for Pepino. All right, what else we got, Phil?
I think that's about it. Jeff, you wanna put in your guess for Trey Turner?
I think I did a little ways back. Yeah, it's in the chat.
I don't know. We can screw around for another 5 minutes, or we can call it.
Any other interesting names? Any of you guys are looking to have a big year, or you think are going to be busts? What are we thinking?
I agree with you, Bowman 51. I agree with you. His face, he just looks unathletic, kind of like Devers, except Devers really is fat.
He can rake though.
He hit that home run off Chapman.
Oh, roll this Chapman. I was thinking the same thing. A lefty going lefty, and he went opposite field. That always sticks into my mind when I think of Rafael Devers. I know Jay McGillicuddy. He's a big Rafael Devers fan. Guy's got talent for sure.
Yeah, yeah, he is. Tatis Jr. in the same infield as Machado. I think Tatis. Well, Tatis. The plan is for Tatis to play short and to have Machado move over. But I think we talked about this about a month ago, Jeff. I don't know if Tatis is going to contribute much in fantasy leagues this year. I think he could come up in maybe August, September, but I don't know. I don't see him coming up in the first.
I definitely see Tatis as a September call up, and she blinded me with refractors. I think this guy. I've been saying this every year for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. At some point, I got to be right. This is the year that Byron Buxton breaks out. I think he teased us back in the 2017 season with such a strong second half, but then he came back last year, flopped. Then when he was coming back, he got injured. So last year was a lost year for Byron Buxton. The guy's got all the tools. I will say this for him. Several reports I've read and seen have Buxton that they've said he put on about 10 pounds of muscle. So it looks like he's trying to stay away from the injury bug by bulking up a little bit. Who knows if that takes away from his speed because the guy's fast as lightning. But at some point, I'm going to say yes, Byron Buxton breaks out.
Oh, man, dude, you just reminded me of there used to be some manipulative guy in my fantasy league that used to take advantage of the weaker players in our league and like offer them friendship in order to get good players. And I remember Ty Wigginton had like a really good first 2 weeks of the season. And then he says, and we're all about to veto the trade. It was Ty Wigginton for like something else. We're all about to veto the trade. And he's like, no. Ty Wigginton put on 35 pounds of lean muscle in the offseason.
Oh, lean muscle.
Like, he did? And we're like, even after the trade goes through, he's like, yeah, I made that up. And we're like, Jesus Christ. So Buxton is so hard to predict, but it reminds me of guys like Alex Gordon, Edwin Encarnacion, true post-hype breakouts that do happen, Yerkes and Profar, that just guys that disappoint, not just 1 year, not just 2 year, but again. I think he'll do it eventually, but unfortunately for Buxton, he's put together streaks where he's been really good. So you're not going to know you have the good Buxton till it's like the end of the season. You've had him for at least 4 months putting up.
You just touched on a name right there that I think is really hot for me in fantasy baseball this year. And I don't mean to pick on Lone Star Legend and his Texas Rangers, but why in the world? I don't know why. I'm sorry. I don't know why they traded away Jerks and Profar. I think he was a catalyst on that team. Well, if you can, I mean, the team didn't win a whole lot of games, but he really, really broke out last year. And I think he's going to do great, great things for the Oakland A's this year. And in fantasy value, in terms of that, I think he's eligible at every position on the diamond outside of catcher. So I think Jerks and Profar is going to have a fantastic year, both in real life and in terms of fantasy.
Yeah. All right. See you later, Lone Star. You the man. Texas forever. Bowman 51 said Devers came into camp all thinned out. Yeah, I think Sandoval came into camp really thinned out one time. How did that work out? Are we still paying him? All right. So I think, Profar to Oakland was a steal. I agree. All right. So I think that's it. I think I'm going to call it a day, wrap it up. It's been a little bit over an hour, so we don't want to bore you too much. And there's plenty of content for future installments we have of this. Any last words, any parting words, Jeff?
No, I just can't wait to get this. I have my draft next Monday, which kind of sucks because it's after the season starts because these stupid games in Japan, which I hate because they start so damn early. Then they have to report back to camp to finish up spring training. I hate it, but that's another issue for another time. So I know a lot of us are getting really excited now for our fantasy baseball drafts. And I look forward to our next edition. I don't know. It might be a week into the season or a week prior to season. I don't know. I look forward to it, though.
Who knows? But yes, 13 days, man, is the real opening day. All the teams play. I think it's the earliest all the teams have played in quite some time. So, the Japan games don't count, but it's crazy. So much snow on the ground here. It's freezing outside. Well, today was nice in Boston, but
today was beautiful here in the Northeast. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate you guys joining. We can't do it without the chat. So again, thank you all.
All right, guys. Take care, everyone.